Okay, so maybe you waited till the last minute to crack open Pride and Prejudice.
And now you need all the spark notes, cliff notes, like every note you can get.
That's where this deep dive comes in.
We're breaking down the characters, the drama, the whole shebang.
To make you the Pride and Prejudice expert.
Or at least sound like one.
Exactly. So anyone who's ever encountered, like, a piece of classic literature.
Who knows, it can be a little intimidating.
A little.
Okay, a lot intimidating.
But what's so great about Pride and Prejudice?
Is that it's also, like, deceptively simple, right?
It's just this charming story about love and marriage.
But underneath that surface,
Austen is crafting this really brilliant commentary.
on class and societal expectations, all that good stuff.
And she does it with characters that feel so real.
Even though they're dealing with, 19th century problems.
Right, so let's jump in with the characters, specifically the Bennet family. I mean, talk about a family dynamic that's just ripe for drama.
Oh, absolutely. Starting with the father, Mr. Bennet. He's described as sarcastic, witty.
But also kind of detached.
Yeah, I mean, when he jokes about his daughters, Lydia and Kitty, being, quote, two of the silliest girls in the country.
Which, ouch, that's your dad right there.
It makes you wonder, is he just being funny? Or is there some deeper frustration there?
I mean, he's surrounded by all these women in a society that really doesn't give him much control over their futures.
Exactly. So maybe that humor is his way of coping.
Now, his wife, Mrs. Bennet, she does not seem to be coping.
No, not at all.
She is laser-focused on one thing and one thing only, marrying off those daughters.
She's like the embodiment of that old saying, a mother's work is never done, except in her case.
It's all about securing a good marriage.
And remember her reaction when she hears about Mr. Bingley's fortune.
She practically fainted.
I mean, Austen uses her as this caricature of a marriage-obsessed mother, but there's also, like, this subtle critique there, right?
Because it wasn't just some silly female obsession.
Right. It reflected the very real, very limited options available to women back then.
A good marriage wasn't just like a nice bonus. It was often seen as essential for survival,
Totally. Okay, so into this pressure cooker of a family walk the Bennet daughters. And we got to start with Jane.
The eldest, the beautiful one.
She's almost too nice, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Like,
to a fault.
right.
Yeah.
Jane embodies all those idealized feminine qualities of the era. Gentleness, compassion, always led by her heart.
Which makes her initial infatuation with Bingley totally understandable. Right. He's charming, he's kind.
And she's drawn to that, just like her mother is drawn to his fortune.
But with Jane, it feels more genuine, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. But the question is, can someone that good, that innocent, survive in a world where people are often driven by less than noble intentions?
And that's where our girl Elizabeth comes in. She's intelligent, she's independent.
And she sees right through Bingley's friend, Mr. Darcy, and that whole brooding act he's got going on.
Oh yeah, Mr. Darcy. He makes quite an entrance.
He's introduced as this quintessential aloof romantic hero, but Austen, she's already planting seeds of doubt,
Like right from the beginning.
Like, remember when he refuses to dance with Elizabeth at the ball? It's not just awkward, it's almost a deliberate disregard for social conventions, right?
Which, in that society, was a big deal.
Huge. It immediately sets him apart, makes him different, maybe even a little dangerous.
And then, to make matters worse, or maybe better, depending on how you look at it,
Or spicier, let's be honest.
Mr. Wickham arrives in town, oozing charm.
Oh, Wickham, talk about a charmer.
Seriously. And he wastes no time in zeroing in on Elizabeth and feeding all her doubts about Darcy with some very strategically placed lies.
See, Wickham, he's a classic Austen archetype. Handsome, charming, and a master manipulator.
The kind of guy who could charm the birds out of the trees.
Exactly. And he uses those qualities to his advantage, preying on people's perceptions, exploiting their weaknesses.
But you gotta admit, he also moves the plot along.
Oh, for sure. His lies about Darcy. They force Elizabeth and us as readers to really confront how much we judge based on first impressions.
And how often those impressions can be deceiving.
Exactly.
And it's that whole Wickham-Darcy thing, right,
Yeah.
that really sets the stage for the central drama.
Oh, absolutely. The clash of the titans. Elizabeth Bennet versus Mr. Darcy.
Round one, F. She chased.
Their relationship is like a masterclass in slow burn tension.
Austen really takes her time letting those initial misunderstandings simmer.
And simmer they do, until they boil over into these amazing confrontations.
Because let's be real, their first impressions of each other. Total disaster.
Train wreck of epic proportions.
Elizabeth sees Darcy as this arrogant snob.
Especially after that whole comment about her not being handsome enough to tempt him.
Ouch, that's gotta sting.
Right. And Darcy, blinded by his pride and his obsession with class.
He completely underestimates her.
Doesn't see the intelligence and wit beneath the surface.
He's so focused on her family's, shall we say, eccentricities.
But he assumes she's just like them.
But then we start to get these glimpses of who they really are.
Like cracks in their carefully constructed facades.
Like when Darcy steps in to save Lydia from that whole elopement mess with Wickham.
Talk about a turning point.
Seriously, that's not just a guy fulfilling a social obligation.
He's going above and beyond, putting his own reputation on the line.
To protect Elizabeth and her family.
Which says way more about him than words ever could, right?
Totally. And then there's that scene at Pemberley.
Oh, Pemberley, Darcy's grand estate.
The place just screams wealth and privilege.
And Elizabeth goes there expecting to hate it, expecting to hate him.
But instead, she's totally thrown by how he acts.
It's like Austen's using the setting to mirror his internal transformation, you know?
Because Pemberley, it represents the best of Darcy. The kindness, the generosity, even a playful side that we never see before. It's like, for the first time, Elizabeth starts to question everything she thought she knew about him.
And we, as readers, are right there with her like, wait a minute, have we misjudged this guy?
Maybe he's not so bad after all.
But of course, this is a love story, so we can't have things run too smoothly.
Cue the dramatic music.
Enter Lady Catherine de Bourgh, Darcy's aunt, the queen of disapproval.
She is on a mission to make sure these two crazy kids don't get together.
She is not here for it.
Not even a little bit. Lady Catherine, she is like the embodiment of aristocratic snobbery.
She's trying to control everyone, uphold this rigid social order that benefits, well, people like her.
And Elizabeth Bennet marrying her nephew, yeah, that does not fit into the plan.
Not even on the last page of the plan.
But Elizabeth, to her credit, she stands her ground.
She is not backing down.
She's not going to be bullied or manipulated.
Because here's the thing. She wants to marry Darcy for Darcy.
Not for his money, not for his fancy house.
She's fallen for the man beneath the facade.
The man she's discovered, he truly is.
And that's what makes their eventual happily ever after so satisfying.
They've earned it.
They've challenged each other, pushed each other to grow.
And they've chosen love and respect over pride and, well, you know.
Prejudice. They've lived up to the title, haven't they?
Speaking of living up to expectations, we can't forget about Jane and Bingley.
Oh, our other star-crossed lovers.
They seem perfect for each other, right? But even their relationship hits a few snags.
Thanks to some well-meaning, but ultimately meddling, friends and family.
Bingley, he's a good guy, but let's just say he's easily influenced.
He's like a chameleon, taking on the opinions of whoever he's with.
And unfortunately, those opinions often belong to his sisters, and, at least initially, Darcy.
Who don't exactly see Jane as his equal.
They pressure him to leave Netherfield, leaving poor Jane utterly heartbroken.
And questioning her own judgment.
It's a classic example of how external forces, societal expectations, all that, can really mess things up.
Even when two people genuinely care for each other.
But don't worry, this is Austen, so we know a happy ending is coming.
Eventually.
Bingley comes back, their love is rekindled, and they finally get their chance at happiness.
Though it's worth noting that it takes Darcy's own transformation to make that happen.
Right. He realizes he was wrong about Jane.
And he encourages Bingley to follow his heart, not the dictates of society.
So both couples, their happiness is kind of intertwined.
Absolutely. Darcy and Elizabeth's journey paves the way for Jane and Bingley's reconciliation.
Which is part of what makes Pride and Prejudice so satisfying.
It's not just a love story. It's about how our individual choices,
our willingness to confront our own flaws,
can have this ripple effect on the people around us.
Love, loss, societal pressure.
Family drama, witty banter, misunderstandings.
Austen really packs it all in. You know, it's funny. We always talk about this book as like the ultimate love story.
Which, don't get me wrong, it totally is.
But it's also like this really sharp commentary.
On the whole society, right? Like Austen, she's not afraid to show us how limited women's choices were.
Especially when it came to marriage, their place in the world.
Exactly. And no one embodies that more than like Charlotte Lucas.
Our resident pragmatist.
Right? She's smart, she's capable, but she also feels like she has zero options.
Which is why she ends up marrying Mr. Collins.
Who, let's be honest,
is kind of the worst.
The absolute worst. And it's heartbreaking because you see how her decision is driven by, like, a need for security, not love.
Totally. Which makes Elizabeth's choices even more remarkable, right?
Oh, 100%.
She turns down not one, but two proposals.
Mr. Collins we get, but Darcy. That's a bold move. even for Elizabeth.
It shows how much she values her own independence.
Her willingness to go against the grain,
She refuses to compromise her values.
even when everyone's telling her she's crazy.
And of course, we can't forget about Lady Catherine.
Oh, Lady Catherine, the queen of, like, I know what's best for everyone.
She is not a fan of Elizabeth and Darcy's little romance.
Not a fan at all. She's like the walking embodiment of societal expectations.
And that scene where Elizabeth finally confronts her,
Iconic. Talk about standing up for yourself.
it's like this ultimate act of defiance.
Right. Elizabeth's not going to be controlled by anyone, not even someone like Lady Catherine.
It's empowering, honestly, even after all these years.
Totally.
Yeah.
So, like, why does any of this matter? Why should we, in the 21st century, care about these characters?
It's a good question.
Because ultimately, Pride and Prejudice, it's not just a fluffy romance novel. It's about human nature.
The things we still struggle with today, right?
Exactly. Like the pressure to conform, the dangers of judging people based on first impressions.
The whole messy, complicated nature of love and relationships.
It's like Austen created this blueprint for understanding ourselves.
And even though these characters are living in, like, 19th century England,
They feel so real, so relatable.
we've all been Elizabeth wanting to prove everyone wrong.
Or Darcy, trying to overcome our own prejudices.
It's that universality that makes Austen such a genius.
100%. She captures these timeless truths about what it means to be human.
And she does it with wit, with intelligence, and, let's be real, a healthy base of drama.
Don't forget the drama. So, as you continue your own deep dive into Pride and Prejudice,
We want you to think about how these characters resonate with your own experiences.
have you ever misjudged someone? Or felt the pressure to fit in?
And most importantly, how can we all learn to approach the world and each other with a little less pride and maybe a little less prejudice?
Now, those are questions worth pondering.